Houston's original neighborhood downtown is for everyone. It's our open-hearted home for our biggest celebrations and our treasured hidden gems. Come explore downtown with some amazing free events through Downtown Houston Plus, like the Summer Trivia Nights at Trebley Park throughout the summer with topics like The Office, Taylor Swift, and more. Learn more at downtownhouston.org. Downtown Houston, get energized and revived. It's hot outside, and you can cool off from the heat with the summer exhibitions at the Contemporary Arts Museum, Houston. Explore the unseen dynamics of Houston's Freedmanstown with Theaster Gates' The Gift and the Reneg. Or visit otherworldly planets and ecosystems with Olivia Erlanger's If Today Were Tomorrow. Admission is always free at the Contemporary Arts Museum, Houston. For more information, visit camh.org. I'll see you at the Contemporary Arts Museum, Houston. Today on CityCast Houston. I didn't think we'd see a story where Mayor Whitmire would be calling out the Houston Zoo for being too expensive, but here we are. We'll get into that. Plus, why was an HISD administrator taunting parents at a board meeting? And how an inmate escaped prison by simply walking away. Let's talk about those stories and more with ABC 13 reporter Shannon Ryan. And just a quick note for listeners, one of the stories we talk about does involve the murder of a young girl here in town. It's Tuesday, June 25th. I'm Raheel Ramzan-Ali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Shannon, what's up? How are you? Welcome back.
Hey, Raheel. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's been almost a year since you started at ABC 13 and moved to the city of Houston. What's been your favorite part living here so far?
Ooh, easily the weather. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say.
No, it's definitely CityCast. And in addition to that, it is the people. The people here are wonderful. I am so lucky, so fortunate to have made the friends that I've made and also to have the coworkers that I have. Everybody just really rocks. So I feel super lucky.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. And we appreciate your coworkers. They've been guests on the show as well. So shout out to them. When you were about to move to Houston, what were some of the stereotypes in your mind? And did they live up to it?
I mean, I think stereotypes about Houston were that it's hot, there's a lot of concrete, and there's a lot of crime. And all of those things are kind of true to some extent. But I also absolutely love it. It is such a wonderful, vibrant, welcoming community. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is hot. Yes, there is a lot of concrete. Yes, there can be a lot of crime like any other big city. But it is truly a beautiful place with beautiful people and just so much to experience.
Yeah, there's so much to experience, and we're glad that you are part of this city as well. Now, let's get to your biggest story of the week. What do you got for us?
Oof, I think for the biggest story of the week, unfortunately, it's the 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray who was found murdered in North Houston. She was found bound. Her pants had been removed. 2 men have since been arrested in connection to her death. They're currently working their way through the court system right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the harder stories to talk about and also just follow the coverage. And our hearts go out to the family. And it's also sparked a lot of debate about immigration as well, right? I was going to ask you about that because as y'all are covering the story, it seems like every time the ABC 13 social media account posts about it, it just turns into a huge debate because of what's going on. Have you seen that as well?
Yes, absolutely. So these 2 men are from Venezuela. They had had interactions with U.S. immigration officials prior to Jocelyn's death. And anytime that we do post about it, there are hundreds of comments about immigration. It's obviously an incredibly contentious topic, and this is unfortunately no exception.
So the first man, Franklin Jose Pena Ramos, saw a judge yesterday. The second suspect, Johan Jose Martinez Rangel is going to be expected in courts today. And both men, who are again accused of murdering the child, waived their right to appear in court last Friday. So now it's all up to the justice system on what happens next. And this could take a long time.
Exactly. And also with her body being thrown in the water, that may have impacted DNA as well. So I think there's certainly a lot more we're expecting to come out throughout the course of the investigation.
Y'all have been covering this story. So many reporters have been on it. And Jocelyn's classmates have spoken up and talked about Jocelyn as well. What do we know about Jocelyn?
A lot of her classmates had shared, just like goofy TikTok dances they had been making on their phones together, silly videos, photographs they had been taken. They talked about how they had all shared dreams for their future together. We also know that this corner store that she was at was a place she liked to go to a lot. She liked to pick up sodas and slushies, the clerk there told us. And that surveillance video that you can see from those last moments of her life, she was actually seen holding a soda. We know she was on the phone with her boyfriend, who was just 13.
Just absolutely heartbreaking. We're thinking about the entire community. We're thinking about her family. And make sure y'all check out abc13.com for the latest in this story, because a lot is going to be changing here every single day.
Certainly, this is a case that we can expect to hear updates on for years to come.
Shannon, I'm going to get to my biggest story, and we've got some corruption charges going down in Midtown. So Todd Edwards, who was an official with the Midtown Redevelopment Authority, which is MRA, and Veronica Ugorji and Kenneth Jones are facing corruption charges after allegedly laundering more than $8 million in taxpayer dollars. Investigators say Edwards was in charge of invoicing and contracting with potential vendors. He allegedly used his position with the help of Ugorji and Jones to misuse millions in public funds, which were initially meant to cover the cost of landscaping and maintenance throughout Midtown, to buy expensive cars, houses, lavish trips, and even pornography, according to a report by Lucio Vasquez of Houston Public Media. Shannon, what is happening in Midtown?
Yeah, Raheel. So that was actually a report from Pooja this week. And I don't know if you got to watch the actual press conference, but the way that the DA reads out pornography just cracks me up. Did you watch it?
No, I missed that one.
She made sure to emphasize it. She made it her last thing. She said it incredibly dramatically. It was hilarious. Just if you haven't seen it, go watch it back. You won't regret it.
I'm going to link that in our show notes because I want to know more about this. Like, what were they spending money on OnlyFans accounts? I don't know. Like, that is so confusing to hear pornography.
All I know is that there was shame in Kim Ogg's voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And during that press conference, by the way, Kim Ogg said she believed that the board was unable to provide oversight that was thorough enough to catch a very simple scheme. And the scheme was so unsophisticated, she said, that the slightest investigation or even second look would have revealed a great deal. It's public corruption 101. And by the way, here's some background. So the Midtown Redevelopment Authority and Midtown's Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, or the TIRZ zones, were both created in the 90s, and they worked together to foster economic development by making quality of life improvements to streets, sidewalks, and utilities, according to the authority's website. So these are programs designed to help the community, and they have a board in place. But when members of the board and people in that program are misusing funds, isn't it a good thing that we're catching them, because we want to stop public corruption?
We do, and that's this mayor has also said that that's like on his agenda, is cracking down on corruption. So we'll see. I mean, over the next couple of months, what happens? But there's been a lot of drama in the TIRZ. Speaking of the mayor,
yeah, and Mayor Whitmire has said that he is going to investigate all the TIRZ and find out like what is happening and making sure that every dollar is being spent correctly. And yeah, you're right. That's something that he promised. Like, we're going to clean up as much of the city as we can, especially with the service side, right? Like, when you're servicing the public with taxpayer dollars, every dollar should be spent correctly. And good, corruption's being weeded out. Shannon, let's get to some rapid fire. I know you listen, so you know what rapid fire is about. And I'm going to start with you because I saw you working on this story about the Clemens unit at the Texas Department of Corrections. And inmates are just walking out of line and leaving the holding unit. What is happening there?
Yeah, so the Clemens unit hosts G1 through G4 inmates. So basically, what that means is when you think of a traditional prison, you think of the walls, the gates, the whole 9 yards. It's sort of like your traditional prison. But they also have this trustee camp, which is like a low security facility on the site, but outside that really traditional prison facility. So at the Clemens unit as a whole, they've had 3 inmates escape within the past year. 2 of them have been from that trustee camp, and then both of them, we've been told, just sort of walked off, which is super interesting. But the way that it was explained to me was, hey, look, this is designed to be a low security facility where folks really could just walk off if they wanted to. I asked, did you make any changes after the first person walked off back in October 2023? Are you going to make any changes now? And right now they said it doesn't look like anybody strayed from protocol. So they're really just viewing this as a lapse of judgment on his part, he being Kidane Robles, the guy who just sort of walked off Saturday evening.
Yeah, and he was found 5 miles away from the unit and was living in somebody's guest house, right?
He was, yeah. I spoke with the family. They've got young kids. They were headed to a baseball game. They said they actually didn't even realize he was there. So they've got a creek, it's called Oyster Creek, that runs back behind their yard. And if you look at a map, that creek really just runs from the trustee camp to the guest house. So the idea is that he just followed the creek all the way back. Various entities use dogs, all of it to track him to that guest house. And the family didn't even realize he was there until authorities were confronting him, and they eventually shot him in the arm.
Wow. That is nuts. Like, imagine that one day you're just like, wait, why are authorities in the guest house? And, well, there's an escaped inmate. That's why.
Yeah, I was talking to him. We were like, just a long day, really long day. But he's at UTMB in Galveston recovering. And thankfully the family inside the home, because their main home, which they were in, was just a few feet away. They're all okay.
So as you mentioned, you talked to officials and they said that it was a lapse in judgment by Robles of him walking out. So they trust these inmates to, look, follow the protocols, and he made that mistake of just walking out.
Exactly. So he had initially been sentenced for a myriad of crimes out of the Bexar County area. So it was aggravated robbery, burglary. There was also an incident involving possession in there. And he had served most of his sentence and he was out on parole, but he had a parole violation, which was what landed him back in TDCJ custody. And when he landed back for that parole violation, that's why they put him on this trustee camp, because they said, hey, you're almost done. You were already on parole. You just made this mistake. Previously, when somebody else had escaped in October 2023, the way that it was explained to us is that only nonviolent inmates are housed there. So I am really curious to just learn more about what is the exact criteria, because obviously aggravated robbery is not a nonviolent offense, but I would like to learn more about what the exact criteria is and what security really does look like there, because it was explained to us as you can just walk off. Like, what do living accommodations look like? They didn't notice he was gone for 2 hours. Just a lot of questions right now.
Yeah, a lot of questions. And I hope we get some answers. Yeah, because that is wild that you can just walk off and there's not other security parameters in place. Like, I don't know, guards watching.
I also want to know how many inmates they have in that low security facility as well, because there's obviously this, a great debate as to what our prison system should look like, how it should be more rehabilitative. And I think, moving to lower security options could be really great for some people. So if it's just 2 people who have, quote unquote, made that bad decision to walk off, if that's out of how many people, are they jeopardizing it for everybody else? Could they ruin it for everybody else? That would be a major bummer. A lot to learn.
A lot to learn for sure.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. Or, as I can say now, thanks to a few weeks with Babbel, hola, soy David Plotz, el jefe de CityCast. What if in 2024 you got a little bit better every day? When you're learning a new language with Babbel, that's exactly what you're doing. And if Babbel can help me start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, imagine what you could do in a full year. I got started with Babbel because I realized that my girlfriend, who's a native Spanish speaker, and my son, who's in AP Spanish, were conspiring against me, or I thought they were conspiring against me in Spanish. I wanted to know what they were talking about. And now, thanks to literally just a few weeks of Babbel, I'm starting to be able to eavesdrop. It is rare that something so fun and simple, and Babbel is super fun and very simple, is also so useful. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Sign up to The Economist for in-depth curated expert analysis of world events and topics ranging from business and culture to science and technology. You'll get the weekly digital edition, online-only articles, curated newsletters on politics, the markets, science, culture, and China, and full access to The Economist Podcast Plus. The Economist is independent journalism for independent thinking. Go to economist.com and get your first month free.
All right, so we know Mayor Whitmire is cleaning up a lot in the city, and I had no idea the zoo was going to be next on his list because Mayor Whitmire has set focus on the Houston Zoo because it's too expensive. He's asking the zoo to look at everything and examine the prices, saying it has become too expensive to visit the second most popular zoo in the nation. Now, side note, as a parent, let me tell you that yes, it is expensive, and the only time my oldest daughter goes is when she's going on school field trips because it's free. So I just want to go through some of these important numbers. The zoo uses dynamic pricing, so it's changes based on the time of day you go. So a family of 4 could range from $63 to $139 for admission. But the zoo has said only 34% of the zoo's 2.1 million patrons in 2023 paid full price for admission. Zoo members don't pay full price. College students, those coming in on school field trips, as I mentioned, those coming in on any of the zoo's free days enter the park at no cost. And then also Lone Star card holders also get $9 admission for children and adult tickets. So the pricing is kind of weird. Like if only 34% of the people are paying full price, why not just lower the price? Like I'm kind of torn on this one, Shannon.
I work as the City Hall reporter over at ABC 13. So I called up some of the mayor's folks and I was like, look, like what is the deal with this zoo drama? Like what's really going on here, guys? And they said that it really does just run counter to the mayor's values of accessibility and affordability.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, the zoo does free days, discount days, but that he really feels like for lower or middle class families, it's just not practical right now. The zoo's counter argument is that the zoo does a lot with conservation and that money is needed to continue conservation efforts. So obviously we all want the animals to be in fantastic habitats, fantastic standing, and they say this is a system that works for them to keep those animals safe and continue with other conservation efforts as well.
Yeah.
So the city also provides the zoo an annual subsidy. In 2023, that $10.5 million taxpayer subsidy covered 17% of the zoo's operating budget.
Man, that is wild. So the mayor has his sights set on the zoo. And I told you I'm torn on this because, yes, there are free days and discount days, but it is packed on those free days. Parking is already hard in that area. Like, to me, maybe this is me being older and old school. I feel like the zoo should be like a $10 to $15 ticket max per person. But I also understand that we have a huge zoo that has over 6,000 animals and 900 species. And you mentioned the efforts that they're making. Like, I don't know. I'm torn. I want affordable entertainment and I want to go to the zoo because I love the zoo. But man, yeah, it is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm also thinking about this. When we go to other cities as tourists, I never complain about the prices, right? I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. The San Diego Zoo, I really want to check it out. I don't even know how much it costs. Let's just buy the ticket. But I guess it is more personal here for us because this is our city's zoo and we want to check it out on the weekends, but it is getting a little expensive here. And by the way, shout out to Abby Church from the Houston Chronicle for all the information in this story. Shannon, my next story in Rapid Fire, and this is a quick one. Shout out to Houston's own Jeffrey Lewis, aka B-Boy Jeffro, on qualifying for the Olympics in Paris. Now, Lewis announced on Instagram that he'll be part of Team USA's breakdancing team. If you don't know, this will be the first year that breaking will be an Olympic sport. And Lewis, by the way, is one of the favorites to win it all. So, Shannon, how would you do as a breakdancer?
You know what? I think that I would give it my all. I think I'd have a really good time. But I'll leave it at that. How do you think you'd do?
I would be terrible. As I talked about on our episode last Thursday, leaving our comfort zone in the city of Houston, I hate dancing. I'm afraid to dance. Like I don't mind doing it. Like I get over that uncomfortable feeling and I'll do it, but I have no rhythm. So I can't even imagine dancing in front of millions of people watching at home in the breaking contest. I would fail epically. It would not be good, but I would have fun.
It's so cool though. So I wonder, because I've always viewed breakdancing as sort of a uniquely American thing, and perhaps that's incorrect. I wonder what countries are participating. How does that work?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out once the competition starts, right? I know it's going to be a lot like the gymnastics portion where there's going to be a panel of judges, of course, scoring the routines and the dances and all that. So this is going to be fun. I can't wait to see how it actually looks on the TV screen during the Olympics.
Yeah, oh, cool.
So cool. So nice to see Houston represented. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more Houstonians qualifying for the Olympics as more qualifiers are going on right now. All right, Shannon, you know what happens on Tuesday. You're a fan of the show. Only in H-Town. Stories that are so unique, sometimes wacky, sometimes cool, but they only happen here. Start us off. Only in H-Town.
Well, we certainly see a lot on this job, so I certainly struggle to parse through all the stories, all the things that we have seen. But I think within the past couple of weeks, there is a story that I do want to share because I think it's such a good example of the heart that Houston has. So somebody was speeding and it caused a crash with a gas tanker. The person who was speeding, and that's according to police, was stuck in their car. And there were some guys just like hanging out day drinking in their yard near the highway. And they heard the impact and they just ran. And they were able to pull this guy out of the car before the tanker exploded. And it was like a movie scene.
What?
And yeah, and they got him to safety. And they were talking about how they could feel the flames and they had to move him a second time because the flames were so strong. But I just thought that was really awesome. Like unlikely heroes just hanging out, drinking in their yard, and they pulled somebody to safety seconds before an explosion. And also very H-Town as well, fuel tanker.
On fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're telling me basically this sounds like Hank Hill and his friends were in their front yard drinking, and all of a sudden they just hear this crash and they went and did the Texas thing and just helped out their neighbor, because that's exactly a King of the Hill premise right there. Man, that is such an only an H-Town story. Okay, Shannon, my story does not involve any tankers on fire, but we will go to HISD because only in H-Town can we get an HISD story that ends with parents filing a formal complaint against a district administrator because he was taunting parents at a school board meeting. Now, during the meeting where state-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles was unveiling STAR test results, parents were interjecting with some criticism, which prompted leaders to take a recess in the meeting. Well, in that break, North Division Superintendent Orlando Riddick started yelling "scoreboard" at the parents, gloating about the preliminary numbers, which showed an improvement in STAR testing. So if you've never played any sport or if you don't know what scoreboard means, it's basically when anybody's talking trash to you, you just go scoreboard, like, look, we're up, we're beating you right now. And this is what a high-level administrator at HISD was doing to parents. Camille Bro, the mother of two Crockett Elementary students, has filed a formal complaint and wants a formal write-up about the incident to be included in Riddick's employee record. What are we doing? Why are you yelling scoreboard at parents when you know how heated this has been, the state's takeover of HISD? And this just keeps going back to the lack of communication, the lack of understanding from this entire state-appointed leadership. It seems like they just don't understand like where the parents are coming from, where the teachers are coming from. Can we not yell scoreboard at a heated meeting? Come on.
Yeah, this certainly isn't helping to smooth things over. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Like, imagine you could have taken this big meeting where preliminary results are showing improvements, right, via the STAR test, and you could have made this a positive. You could have maybe helped the parents out, like, hey, look, we are making strides. Here are next steps. But instead, you decide to yell scoreboard. And now it's just like another wrench in that partnership. So, man, only in H-Town, Shannon, only in H-Town. Like, I'm flabbergasted right now. It's just unbelievable.
Raheel, I hadn't heard that until now, and that is cracking me up.
That was a lot of fun, Shannon. I know there were some tough stories to talk about, but I appreciate you joining us and helping us get this week started right.
Raheel, thank you so much. Always so good to see you.
That was ABC 13 reporter Shannon Ryan. I've linked all the stories in our show notes. And if you want even more Houston news and things to do in your inbox every morning, be sure to subscribe to Hey Houston at houston.citycast.fm or click the link in our show notes. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Can you yell scoreboard at me?
Scoreboard. Just wanted to remind you that I won this podcast.